Terry, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Clauser.
Yep.
Mrs. Cooper.
Here.
Dr. Faulkner.
Here.
Dr. Green.
Here.
Mrs. Heater.
Here.
Mr. Huron.
Here.
Mr. Reichard.
Here.
Mr. Vognetz.
Here.
Mr. Brookhart.
Here. Before we move on to 1.3, the minutes, I'd like to announce that we had an executive session before this meeting. We talked about 2 personnel issues. And we will move on to 1.3, the minutes. The board will take action to approve the meeting minutes from the August 14th, 2023 board meeting as presented. Can I get a motion to approve?
moved.
Mr. Clauser. Mr. Reichert. All right, Terry? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 2.1, reports. Mr. Vognetz, the Finance and Budget Committee, please.
We did not have enough for a quorum for a committee meeting.
Okay.
This past week.
Okay. Academic Affairs Committee, Ms. Heater?
The last one we had August 9th that I believe we didn't talk about it, but we talked about the assessment results. We talked about formal observation processes. It's all outlined with specifics. And is there a schedule developed to that, Molly, for that? Is that schedule? You do have a schedule for that, right? Okay. We talked about parent communication, about going to class tag as one consistent method, which is great. We went over professional development, the overview. They talked about the weekly schedule. Basically, DPS and Liberty Valley would be doing letters, math, DPS, Dibbles and Phonics, Liberty Valley, CDT analysis, and middle school and high school would do CDT analysis. Talked about the science of reading training, Tier 1 through the CSIU, went over the proposal. They showed and shared the curriculum overview template. We'll be talking about that in a little bit in the agenda tonight. Our next meeting is this Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. at the high school in the large group instruction room.
Thank you. Athletics and Extracurricular Activities Committee, Ms. Cooper.
We also did not have a meeting.
Okay. Health and Wellness, Dr. Green.
We have a meeting this Wednesday after the Academic Affairs Committee meeting where we'll be getting updates on the implementations, and there'll be some discussion about policy tonight.
Okay. Columbia Montour Votech, Mr. Clauser.
Yeah, superintendent finally hired.
Yay.
Yay.
Great.
We
You
had-
recall the name?
No.
I don't either. I don't either. Go ahead. I know from Lancaster
I
County.
can see his face and I can't.
Curtis Funkhauser, Lancaster
Funkhauser,
County,
that
right?
is correct.
Okay.
Construction we had a delayed opening up in Votech because of the construction. They opened the school, the construction is still not complete. They expect a continuation in the spring.
Anything else? You're good. CSIU, Dr. Faulkner.
Yep, we had a meeting last month, and 2 of the things I wanted to highlight. One was at the LPN Center graduation, which is a really, really great program. I had a chance to tour that facility. They're doing incredible work to have a pipeline into healthcare work for a lot of folks who it's just really a passionate, inspiring event. And then they had we got a report about CSIU Girls in STEM camp, which was full of lots of fun photos of girls learning STEM, and it's a really cool program to hear about. But other than that, they've delivered some trainings across the district, including ours, for related mental health prevention, suicide prevention stuff, and they continue to do that periodically, I think, for the rest of this academic year.
All right. Thank you. EITC, Mr. Huron.
Nothing to add tonight.
Okay. Head Start, Mr. Reichard.
Head Start, our first meeting for this school year will be the 27th of this month. I have a little bit that I was told by Linda that everything is going well. The kids are excited to be back in school. So we're off to a good start so far.
Okay. Thank you. CS Trust, they do not meet monthly. There was no meeting. There will be another one in October. Have you hered anything from them, Mr. Sokolowski? Anything you want to add? Okay. CS Trust is a Central Susquehanna Trust. It's where our medical programs are administered, some of them. Any comments, questions on any of the committee information? Anything you would like to add? There's a couple things I want to say, but I think I'm going to hold them until the end.
Was there
Good.
anything for building and grounds?
Excuse me?
Was there anything for building and grounds?
No report for buildings and grounds, correct?
No, we just had a short meeting. It was about the HVAC system, whether that's going to be looked at or not looked at, and
Okay,
that's all for right now.
all right. I think as a board, we need to get back into looking at long-range planning, but it's probably most appropriate to do that after the election and get into that in December again.
Yeah.
There's one thing we're charged with, and we've kind of gotten away from it. The prior board had a study done by KCBA, the architect. I thought it was very well done. We didn't move in anything, nor do I know if we're going to do anything now, but we should really look at this as something that's ongoing and take a look at that study again after the next election. And we know who will be here for the next 2 to 4 years. So nothing else in any of the committees? All right, superintendent's report. Dr. Need, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening. We have a look at our current enrollment as well as an enrollment report so we can look at some historical data. So what you'll see here are the number of students that we're starting the school year with. In parentheses, that you'll see the number that finished in May at that grade level. So like the 179 in parentheses in kindergarten has become the 177 in first grade. We just wanted you to kind of see where those numbers are in relation to where we ended the year. Something to spend a little bit more time on the bottom, you will see CMA VTS numbers. So we're at 93 students starting the year there with 15 ninth graders, 18 10th graders, 27 11th graders, and 32 12th graders. So you can see a drop off there that we'll look at a little more extensively here in just a moment. If you go to the next slide, you will see just some specific CMA VTS ninth grade information. So just so you all are aware, we had 42 slots available to us for our ninth graders. We had 45 eighth graders apply in the spring. 7 students did not meet their cut score. They have a rubric that they use. Specifically, it feels as though based on the rubric that students are often eliminated for disciplinary or attendance purposes. So 7 students of those 45 did not meet the cut score. 17 students declined when they were offered a slot, and 6 have withdrawn their application after they accepted and registered, which leaves us with the 15 ninth graders who are now attending. We do pay for an average of students that go over a period of time. So right now, we are presumably paying for more slots than we're actually filling. We could see that number go down in the future if we continued this trend, but certainly we want to be making sure vocational education is offered to any student that that's appropriate for. So this is something we'll definitely be speaking with Curtis about when he comes on board.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to, you're going further with enrollment. I'll let you go.
Yeah, and we will hit on CMA VTS again. And so then this is just our non-public enrollment report, so you can see where we ended in May of 23 in each of those categories and where we're starting in August of 23. It should be noted that the special programs line item are students that we're choosing to place, so maybe in like a 5-star program or something like that. So they are still Danville students, but they just require some sort of special program. The other options there would be families making a choice to not be in Danville. And if you go to the next slide, I'll turn this over to Mr. Moser, who's going to talk about our 5-year enrollment numbers. And this is where we can start to see some of those trends.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Need. You'll see at the top, that's Danville Area School District. Those are students actually enrolled in our either physical buildings or in our own cyber program. These other categories are broken out a little bit differently. You'll see all non-pubs. That would be all Christian schools, Catholic schools, Amish schools, things of that nature. And if you see down below, I actually pulled cyber charters out because technically they are public schools and the funding follows those students, which means we pay tuition. whatever that is set at by the state in a given year. You'll also see CMAVTS, and then you'll see homeschool numbers. And then that bottom row is the total encatchment. So the total number of students that are in the Danville area school district in terms of residents. And these are just straight up numbers over a 5-year span. So you can actually begin to see some patterns that emerge. And I think it's important to look at this. One of the things that as we talk about it, our non-pub numbers are actually slightly down from last year. You see that our in-person or in Danville area school district up about 112 students. That's not insignificant, quite frankly. And you can see kind of, if you go back, I mean, it's not unrealistic to look and see. You can see 2020, 2021, when we were returning from COVID, that there was certainly an impact on enrollment from the year prior. You see the kind of significant decrease in CMAVTS students going back to 1920, where it's from 128 down to 93, and you see cyber charters. And I would say one of the things that this district has done extremely well is keeping many students from going to outside cyber charter schools, and part of that is the program that has been established here, and we were able to retain some of those students in-house. Interestingly, if we go to the next slide, what we did here is converted that to an actual percentage of total encatchment. And I think that for me, I can digest this information a little bit easier when I can see percentages, because raw numbers can go up or down, but if it's going up at the same proportion as your overall number of students in encatchment, it doesn't really tell us a picture. But if you look at this, I think percentages do actually tell us a very different picture. And I would draw attention that decrease in non-pub students is real. I mean, it's, almost a 2%, a little over 1.5% decrease this year. And then you can see that actually homeschool is up by about 0.25%. CMAVTS, you go from 5% because you were dealing with very small numbers, but now that you look at percentages, 5% down to 3.5%. So that's significant. So that means is 1920, 5% of our total student population was attending CMAVTS, and that this current school year, only 3.5% of our total population is actually attending CMAVTS. And so historically, you can actually look at that number and go across and see a decline there. Likewise, cyber charters up a tick, but I would say also in Danville Area School District, that last row, you actually see we are certainly about 3% up from the first year returning from school closure. So in 2020, 2021, we were at 79% of our students were choosing Danville Area School District enrollment. And we are, up 3% from there, almost back to preschool closure numbers, close to. We're still about a percentage point off, but that's the number that we want to see certainly increase. And I think that's by, communicating out numbers, in terms of what do we offer here, what do we do extremely well, and certainly selling our district essentially. I mean, we have a lot of fantastic programs and opportunities for students here, and we have to, one of our things that Dr. Need and I have spoken about in recent weeks was really kind of beginning to formulate a plan that highlights the wonderful things that are on here. And I think, part of that is platform. So there was a lot of work done over the summer on the district website, but part of that is also just how do we communicate out what is going on and available here. If you look at the next slide, it's not in there. I'm sorry. There actually is, one of the things that we want to look at in terms of enrollment are our projections. And so we do have 5-year projections put together. PDE puts those out. We will get those out in this slide. It was late to the game in terms of an edit, but new projections have recently been put out. We are actually ahead of where PDE had us projected for this year in terms of our district enrollment. Things that impact the nature of projections, because as Mr. Brookhart talked about long-range planning, you need to have a good sound understanding of where your district's going. And one of the things that, some of the factors that influence, projections going down, which, by the way, I will preview, they have our projected number of students within our district actually over 5 years drastically going down by about a total of around 200, 250 students. That takes into account live birth rates, but it also, what isn't accounted for there is opening or closing of new public of new non-public schools within your encatchment area or close to, vocational education options that are available for students is one of the factors that they actually highlight on their page in terms of how it impacts the formula. And one of the other things is outside cyber charters, because that number can fluctuate drastically, as we saw on those previous slides, where if something like, the 2020 closures, a lot of students went to outside cyber charters as an alternative option when their local school districts were kind of scrambling a bit to figure out how they were going to deliver educational services. Most districts, as we have seen, have started to see that number decrease now over time, which I think speaks well of what's going on in our district and how students feel connected when they do come to school.
Thank you. And we did, we're going to be having our monthly newsletters. The first ones went out last week, so we certainly are just very happy to welcome our families back. If we take a look at those, we do have a big Daktronics presentation, but we'll briefly highlight some things at each of our schools today.
I'll quickly go through just a couple items of our Danville Area High School newsletter. The first off is newsletters have changed over the years since I began, and so now with Bobby V at the helm with his technology skills. Let's see, Jeff, can we hit play here on this newsletter? Let's see if we hear anything. That's Bobby's voice. I just thought it was pretty neat. Newsletters really have changed, so it's neat to put out there and share electronically with our families and with our students. So just quickly going through the newsletter, we have a welcome back, a great start of the year at the high school. So page 1 is really just a welcome back and some things that'll be found in the newsletter. Page 2, you have 2 very good-looking people highlighted here on page 2. We'll quickly go through that. Page 3. Just some informational items for, again, our parents, families, and students. Real neat thing this year, bottom right portion, each class has what we're calling an infographic, and using the QR code, there are just some important events that our students and families can prepare for this year, and they're slightly different for each grade level. So I think just a nice home and school communication piece. And then Bobby is going to go over this page.
So this year we had some, obviously starting off with our back to school fall sports that are all underway. Just a couple highlights there. If you use the QR code, that's a link to the athletics schedule page, where you can find information for the calendars for each of the sports teams to be able to attend some of their events. Obviously at the top there, we had our new volleyball program kicked off their season this year. It was a great first home match, which was against Hughesville. So it was super exciting. I think they kicked off their new program as well. And so it was like every single serve, it was, as soon as the ball hit the ground, it was cheers across. You would have thought they just won. That's why when I walked in, I was like, man, I just hit the winning shot, and it was not. So so it was a great night to see that, and obviously they're continuing on with some awesome games and matches. So and then down at the bottom is a highlight for our band camp and the awesome things that they did leading up to the season here. And obviously you can catch their new show, which includes some music and some singing pieces to it, which is really cool. And then finally, it's not in the newsletter here. There's some events that are coming up, obviously, that I highlighted there as well. But if you are paying attention to the events that are coming up this week, is our football game against Lycoming. So there'll also be mounted police. Mr. Wagner.
Loyal Sock.
Loyal Sock, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
My bad. Sorry. But Mr. Wagner, more excitingly, Mr. Wagner has the mounted police coming to that game. So they'll be there. And it'll be kind of a nice tribute to not only this week being the anniversary of 9/11, but also just to highlight our military as well and things like that. So.
Thank you to Mr. Gump and Mr. Varholic for a great start at the high school. We'll turn it over to Mr. Snover to talk about the start at the middle school.
So I'll keep this really short. The one thing, and Mr. Ryan, if you could go to page 2, that I would like to highlight, we are, as part of our community park project, we're well underway with the mural. Katie Trainer has been at the middle school now for about 2 weeks. She's fabulous. She's been working with Megan Heistand, our art teacher, and then all of the students that are participating through art classes in the art club. Big shout out to the Daily Item for printing a great article about that in Saturday's edition. If you didn't see that, please look at that. It has some more information about it. But they're working on a 8-foot by 200-foot mural that's going to go across the back of the school. It's going to be, you know, a lot of student design and student involvement in getting that put together. And then here in the end, closer to the end of September, September 21st, they're going to start installing the panels on the back of the school, and it's going to look fabulous. So we're really excited about that.
Thank you.
Oh, and yeah, thanks to CMSU and the Perry County Arts for helping finance this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snover and Ms. Knoll, for a great start there. And today is Ms. Reinerd's first official day as principal at Liberty Valley. We're super excited to have her on board. That Liberty Valley newsletter just showed some great welcome back to school pictures of our students and also had an article featuring Ms. Reinerd and all about her. So we're excited to have her on board, and I know Ms. Wenrick and I are especially excited about that. So thank you, and then I'll turn it over to Mrs. Geist to tell us about DPS.
So I introduced myself to parents in the summertime with my welcome back letter. So I didn't do that in this newsletter, but I took some time on the first page to introduce our new teachers to our building. So we're excited to have them at DPS. At the elementary level, we always love to get parents involved in our home and school association, so I did that. The second page, we took some time to introduce Miss Wenrick and her new role at the primary school. And then the last thing was Rock Your School Day is a huge day at the primary level. That's coming up on September 27th. We have some very special things planned for the students. So,
Thank you so much for a great opening at the primary school, Mrs. Geist. And Mrs. Marshall will, it's just the next slide, Mr. Ryan.
So at Head Start, I just kind of highlighted our curriculums that we use. So we have the creative curriculum for preschool. It's our primary curriculum. Second step is our social emotional. We also use the Orton Gillingham approach, and new this year is the Hegarty. So we're very excited to have all of those and just merging them together to just do the best that we can in educating our children. At the top is just kind of our vision for the Danville Head Start Pre-K program, is that all children will demonstrate the skills, knowledge, and attitudes necessary for success in school and later in life, and for all the families to demonstrate the necessary skills to be self-sufficient. We work with the family, not just the child, so it's just educating children, empowering families is our mission.
So much. Thank you, Mr. Burkhart.
Okay, thank you. Item 4.1, public comment. Maximum of 3 minutes for agenda items only. Anyone on any agenda items would like to speak?
Got it.
You're good.
Marcy Kika.
Okay.
379 West Mahoning Street. Do you need that? Oh, Danville. Erase the rest. Delete the rest. Backspace. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Warrior Run Co-op, Lacrosse Co-op. The answer is yes. You absolutely, without any doubt, give these boys the opportunity to play a varsity sport with our district and our boys lacrosse team. Thank you, Mrs. Cooper and Mr. Reichert, for supporting this opportunity and stating the obvious. Mrs. Cooper, you said you're all for it, and you, and quote, I don't want to not give other boys who don't have an opportunity somewhere else to have that opportunity. Mr. Reichert, you said you're always going to have people on a team that don't get much playing time, regardless if they're from the school or not. Playing time goes by the quality of player you are. And that was one of the biggest sticking points, was we were afraid that we were going to take playing time away from our students. My question is, what about every student? There's no question these boys should have the opportunity to play with Danville. And we need to have the best interest of every student in our mind, not just the ones in our district. Some kids, they live for sports and arts and the drama club and band and chorus, and that's what gets them to school. And if you take that opportunity away from someone, you might be sorry. So I just want you to know that that's where I stand. The answer is yes. And thank you for your time. And do I turn this off? No?
You can leave it on.
You can leave it to someone else.
All right, thank you.
Marcy.
Any others on any topic that's on the agenda? You're up. It's on.
It's great.
You're
You're
okay.
good.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. Devin Frank, 200 Hollow Drive, Danville. First and foremost, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm going to reference some statistics that were emailed to the board ahead of time. I have hard copies of that if anyone would like one. What matters most to my program, I'm the head boys lacrosse coach, is a continued passion for the game. This is a game I, as well as every coach on the staff, fell in love with at an extremely young age. Prior to last season, when we took over, we made our ultimate goal to grow not only this program, but the sport in central Pennsylvania as well. Last year, we hit phase 1 of that goal with our first district championship and our first time playing in a state playoff game in school history. The emotion and celebration we witnessed that night was unlike something I had ever experienced, and I felt beyond an immense sense of pride for how far we had come and how we had introduced that passion to a group of student athletes, parents, teachers, and everyone in Ironman Stadium on June 2nd. We'd achieved phase 1 of our plan, but had yet to hit phase 2, which was grow it within central Pennsylvania. We moved a step closer to achieving that goal when Miss Sarah Moore reached out about her kids, Liam and Colin, coming to Danville to play lacrosse for our program when their opportunities were beginning to fade. It's worth mentioning that Liam and Colin have played with some of our kids since they were in the 5th grade and have begun integrating themselves into this team already. If it were up to me personally, all 26 of our rostered kids would see the field every game. The ugly truth is that last season, despite playing 19 games, we only played a JV game 8 times. Most of this was due to our opponent's choice rather than team capability. In 9 of our games, we had our JV in for the second half. Despite this lack of opportunity in the area, we were still able to letter 86% of our roster, or 22 out of 26 players, for achieving substantial playing time at the varsity level. When you compare this to other Danville sports, lacrosse averages a 7-player, or 20% increase in lettering. Boys soccer lettered 59%, girls soccer 62%, and football 57%. Lacrosse is an extremely fast-paced game, and while only 10 players can be on the field at once, we rotate lines roughly every 2 minutes with a minimum of 3 people coming onto the field. Across all AA schools in the state of Pennsylvania, Danville sits 4 full players behind the state average for manpower. Factoring our graduating seniors and no incoming freshmen at this time, we sit 8 full players behind the state average. Within our district alone, only Mifflinburg and Mifflin County have fewer athletes than we do. This became apparent when we faced Calico in our first state playoff game. Our kids came out of the gate excited and firing on all cylinders. By the end of the first quarter, the score was 8-6 against a team that brought 35 kids and still had more who didn't travel. At halftime, we were still battling, down 12-9. Our athletes showed immense spirit, and everyone on that sideline is ready to go at any given moment against a more established and dominant team. The cards wouldn't fall our way in the second half as we lost 25-9. By the end of the game, our kids had left everything on that field, were completely exhausted, and some, unfortunately, were even injured. They refused to quit simply because we could not match the numbers of a bigger program. When it was all said and done, at that day, 24 out of 26 of our kids stepped on the field in a state playoff game. That is very unheard of in any sport at any level, but we were able to accomplish it due to our kids' tenacity and passion for this beautiful game. Becoming the coach for this program was one of the biggest blessings I have ever received. I was able to gain a sense of community, meet one-of-a-kind people committed to giving their absolute all for the betterment of students and athletes alike, and having the absolute privilege of coaching the finest group of young men I've ever been fortunate enough to meet, and in turn, seeing that team become a family. The unfortunate truth is that this program might not be able to sustain itself 3 years in the future if we don't open it up for a co-op. Right now, our current junior class makes 50% of our current roster, with our current seniors making up another 32%. This is a game I fell in love with at an extremely young age, and now I'm ecstatic to see the impact our kids are having on a school and community. But the brutal truth is that if we don't actively start trying to grow the sport, it may not be here in 3 years. We are in the process of starting a middle school program, but as of now, we will lose half our roster after this year and another quarter the year after, with no way to fill these seats until that program is running. I ask the board to remember their commitment to serving the students of Danville first, but all students, as well as allow Liam and Colin to continue pursuing their passion. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do you mind if anyone has questions?
I do.
For either Ms. Kipka, if you wouldn't mind, or our head coach? Are you okay answering questions?
Yes, sir.
That's not normal with the public comment, but I think in this case, it's
I just
appropriate.
want to ask, so I'm not a sports person at all, just so you know that. So you had said that with your varsity boys, that 22 out of the 26 got time at the varsity level?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's like 85%. So are you saying pretty much then if these other two are permitted, you'd still have like an average of 85%?
I would be very confident that we would still be able to maintain that.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things I know has come up is that as the Danville School Board, we're acting on two kids that are not from here. Do you think that bringing two students in, and I think I already know the answer, is going to have any detrimental impact on the rest of your kids that are?
I personally don't.
Okay.
Kind of like what Ms. Kitka said, like if the person shows up ready to work every day, then that's who plays. And again, lacrosse, there's a lot of rotations going on. I don't think it necessarily be detrimental in any way.
Made some great points. Really appreciate you coming out. Any other questions?
I have one, just kind of fits into the dialogue. Do we have any policy or procedures that govern playing time?
I looked at policy 123 today.
We don't.
Something like that. I
All
also
right,
looked
so
at co-op.
so
too.
then the burden and the responsibility is we empower our coaches to drive the teams and their responsibilities in a certain direction, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to that element of this discussion, and I appreciate what was shared here, I just see that that I know it's a sensitive subject. I've been in sports. I have 4 children. I've coached. I've done from soup to nuts. But I also feel that the concept of playing time can be dissected a lot. But I do feel strongly that the position taken with regard to collectively viewing this opportunity as the betterment of kids is a powerful one. So when I've broken just this down, and maybe I'm going a little far, but I think if we opened it up to this level of discussion, we might as well just kind of continue the thought. I just thought and thought long and hard about a lot of the elements, my personal experiences, the sport and all that, but really boiled down to, at the end of the day, if we're truly about kids and the mental health and well-being of kids, student athletes, that this is straightforward to me.
Yeah,
So,
I understand.
you know, I get it. I've been on all sides of the playing time and all that, but to me, that's not the relevant issue that comes from the school board.
Right.
That's handled at that level. If
Mhm.
it's not handled well at that level, it's handled at that level, then that level. So I don't feel compelled that if we're doing due diligence to governance as a school board team, that the concept of playing time is really what this should be all about at all. And I'm not saying everybody has their own opinion, but that's how I've thought long and hard about this particular element of our responsibilities.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Any more questions? And then I know there may be some other comments. Don't forget, we'll also do motion second and our comments as well. But go ahead if you have something. Sandy, I think you did. Go ahead.
Is there substantial interest from other children from Warrior Run that's been expressed?
Not that we know of, no.
So, Dr. Green, I had an opportunity to speak with their superintendent and athletic director on Friday to just better. Our athletic director had done that previously, of course, before we got to this point. And they would not bring it before their board until it would pass here because there would be nothing for their board to vote on. But at this point in time, they would obviously open it up but did not know of any other students who were interested. It doesn't mean that there wouldn't be, but at this point in time, no one else is interested.
The sport's only available to schools that doesn't have this in their school system already? All this is open for?
So this would be a particular partnership with Warrior Run because they do not have boys lacrosse.
It's only being offered or available to students from schools that don't carry this sport.
Specifically Warrior Run,
Yeah.
where they don't carry the
Yeah,
sport.
if Warrior
yes.
Run had a lacrosse team, their kids couldn't come here.
The district also has to be I'm almost certain that it has to be a physically
bordering
our district.
Yes, well, of course.
I mean, I think the major issue for me in this context was that our first duty is, I agree, we have a duty to all students, but our first duty is to the kids in the District of Danville, right? That's who I was elected to represent. That's who I was elected to serve. That's who I was elected to support, right? And for every dollar I spend in various ways, I should be spending it for my kids, right? That I'm responsible for. So just to sort of, it's not that the opposing position is that we don't care about the mental health of kids in other districts. The opposing position is my primary responsibility is opportunities for kids in my district. And I do appreciate the amount of, I don't know who gathered all the data. I thought so.
Yeah,
I have to say, I really appreciate that. I spent quite a bit of time looking at it. It was helpful. So thank you for putting that time in. I think that makes a big difference. And I appreciate you sitting up there and being willing to talk about this.
Is a comfortable staff of 30, is like a good number to have for lacrosse?
When I played in high school, we carried 45.
45?
That was, in my opinion, a little bit too much. But 30 is a very reasonable number. And
Round number.
for state manpower, about right on.
And if you have JV, from what you sent us, right? There's a junior varsity team.
Yes,
As well.
there is.
Sometimes you aren't able to play JV, but with the continuous substitution as well, you can keep that many kids active, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, I'm seeing 22 out of 26 kids. Was that for the regionals, or was that for every game, or
That was the players who lettered varsity.
the players that lettered? So 4 of them weren't starters at all.
No. One was our backup goalie. We can only have one goalie on the field at a time. One joined the season about 2 months in, and the other two just did not achieve time. 'Cause
The
they were
backup
freshmen.
goalies, they don't rotate. I don't
No.
know anything about lacrosse, so.
No, typically they don't unless one gets injured. Yes, they all played JV.
Other questions for our head coach?
Thanks for taking my notes for me.
Really appreciate you coming out. It won't be long until we're taking a vote here. It's early in the agenda. And is there anybody else that wants to speak on this or any other agenda topic? All right, thank you. Thanks again.
Hi, Kelly Michaels, Danville. I just want to talk on lacrosse. I don't have a leg in the game at all. I don't have any lacrosse players in my family, but I do think it's important to point out that we do co-op in other sports. So I just think it sets a bad example if you vote no tonight when, I can point out swimming. I was a swimmer, and we just had several co-op swimmers from, I believe, Nori Christian, one of which went to the state meet. And I mean, I guess it was never an issue before. So I think that we should all be mindful that it is going on in other sports, and that was just as recent as this past swim season. So I'm guessing if you vote no tonight to lacrosse, what does that do to the other programs that currently have it? So just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Spencer Kavanaugh, I spoke last meeting. I just wanted to make a quick clarification. I think that'll really help a lot of people. We've done a lot of talk about playing time, particular to varsity. To have 85% of your team playing varsity, that's including freshmen who are just learning the sport. In my opinion, that can even become unhealthy, especially against a state playoff team like Ocalico, you know. So all of our players receive JV playing time. I work the substitution box. Most of our players during a JV game, we try not to bring varsity players down, right? It's not fair. And we want to maximize the playing time for our JV kids. They are usually dog tired, and we only have 1 or 2 substitutes, right? So it's heavily imbalanced towards that varsity. And with only 8 games, that's why our goal has been to grow the sport in the region, because the more teams we can play that can support JV teams, playing opportunity for our kids overall. So I just wanted to differentiate, you know, all of our players receive playing time. It's the fact that not enough JV games are played that is really bringing the most detriment, the lower level playing time. So to see that many kids playing varsity, I mean, in my opinion, it's awesome. It shows their passion, their drive, but you know, I wanted to put that kind of to rest. All of our players play at least those 8 JV games plus all of that varsity time that we've talked about. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Others for public comment? I think we have 2.
Competing.
Go ahead. You're next.
Good evening. My name is Colin Moore, and I'm a freshman at Warrior Run. Today I'm here to share my enthusiasm and passion for the idea of joining a lacrosse co-op. Approving a co-op between our schools is an opportunity I hope you all seriously consider, and I hope to tell you why. First, lacrosse is a sport that demands dedication, skill, and teamwork. By joining a co-op, we open ourselves up to the chance to learn from a diverse group of individuals, each with their unique strengths and talents. Joining together increases our own skill sets, making us better athletes and individuals. Second, lacrosse co-ops provide an incredible sense of community. We become part of a tight-knit group, all striving for a common goal, to excel in this sport we love. Lastly, this lacrosse co-op will bring together athletes from different schools, broadening our horizons and exposing us to new perspectives. We gain a broader understanding of the game and a deeper appreciation for the sport's demands. In conclusion, I encourage you all to seriously consider this opportunity. My brother and I appreciate your time and attention. Without this co-op, we won't be able to play a sport we love at the varsity level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Kendra Boel. I live in Danville. My son is a lacrosse player. He will be a senior this year. I will say when I first heard this idea, I absolutely hated it for a lot of reasons, which I will ask you to say are unimportant at this time. Because when I talked to my son as a player, what he said to me was, "Mom, it's really important that other kids get it, and I have no problem with this." And we've always told him, if you want to be a starter, give the coach a reason to start you. And he's not a starter, and he doesn't see a ton of time. He didn't get any time in the state playoff games. Actually, that's not true. He did take the water out to some of the players, but he truly plays for love of the sport. And the fact that my son said to me, he doesn't have an issue with this, and he welcomes these other players, that's important information. And so I'm able to put aside the fact that I'm strongly opposed to this in lieu of he's the one that's playing the game. And I will say these coaches are amazing, and I trust their judgment, and they were wide open to hearing my opinions, and we had a wonderful discussion. So as a parent of a lacrosse player, I'm highly opposed but I'll ask you to forget that because my kid's not opposed to it, and I do trust the coaches.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on agenda items tonight? Okay, we're going to move forward with the agenda, and we'll get to the lacrosse vote shortly. We have a presentation, item 5.1, Daktronics scoreboard presentation.
I'm gonna let the master figure this one out here.
Okay.
Gentlemen ready?
Sure.
Thank you for being patient. We'll turn it over to you. I know Mr. Ryan is about to be in position to be able to change slides, so whenever you would like him to go to the next slide, just say so, and he'll make it happen.
Okay. Thanks, Chase. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. This is Joe Godry. I'm the Pennsylvania sales rep for Daktronics. And tonight I'm joined by Mick Spiciotti, which is our region leader. Mick's out of Baltimore area. And Pete Riesenrath is our Northeast Sports Marketing Manager. And he'll be speaking a little bit later on that benefit. Do we have the logo up? Is the Danville Athletic logo up, the video project logo? Or
Yes.
Okay. Just before we jump into the slides, I just want to talk a little bit about our price package when we're looking at some of the equipment. It includes video, it includes audio. There's a software and content that's included. The price will include installation and freight, system startup, school branding logos, and one-on-one web training. So just kind of keep that in mind when we're going through the few slides that we're going to present tonight. If we want to, can we turn to the first slide there? Has the football player and the board up?
We're there.
All right, perfect. So this build here, we have our video board. The total board size is 27 feet 8 inches by 32. The video area is 16 feet by 8 by 30 and 15 HD. And then you can see that we have a price tag of $410,000. And this price includes non-backlit panels. Right now, we have a fall incentive program running until November 1st. And what we're able to do is upgrade your panels, non-backlit panels, to backlit panels, which has a little over $25,000 value to it. That is something that's very attractive to donors and advertisers and really upgrade your facilities. If you take note where it says Danville Ironman up top there, in the middle you see your logo, the Arm & Hammer. That is the audio system. So that's where the audio would come across the field. When we have the partner panels, there'll be advertisers or donors or however the school decides to use that space. We're showing 10 panels on that 4 up top, 6 down below. That can vary. We could do 5 and 5. We could do if we hit a home run with a donor. I mean, it could be one. They could have one panel up there as far as that's concerned. So that's the first build that we had for you. If we go to the next slide, just wanted to show a little bit of a different look. We have the women or girls soccer player there, and you can kind of see how that board would look with the shots and on goal and the time and the half. And again, this could be with all sports. I mean, we have something up there for lacrosse when you're hosting playoff games, or track and field, or what other events that you have there. You can do movie nights on these boards. You can do buddy days. You can do community days. It can can be used a lot of different ways as far as the video is concerned. And then down in the bottom right is just kind of like the football scheme when we're not showing live video. That would be the look during a football game. And again, with all the sports that you play in that facility, there would be some unique branding and logoing for each sport on that. Our second build we have tonight, if we want to go to the next build, we're back to the football player. Are we there?
Yes.
Okay. This board here is $427,000. Now, this board here is going to be 29 feet by 32, and your video area is going to be 18 by 32, 15 HD. This board here would be the largest, and you'll see a couple different schools, neighboring schools, and programs that we had here in a minute. But this would be, I believe, the largest video board in the high school in Central or Eastern PA done by Daktronics. It's actually about the size of the board I think we're doing at your Sinus College. But again, you'll receive the incentive runs to November 1st. You'll receive that same $25,000 plus upgrade. And again, the board's 29 by 32 with a 15 by 32, 15 HD video display. We can slide to the next slide where we have some of your conference foes. Is the Blue Jays in Bloomsburg up?
Yep.
We saw you guys really related to the Blue Jays on Friday night, so that's good. Their board over there, they have the school's 26 by 27. They have a 15 by 27 video area. Down in the lower left is Southern Lehigh. That board just went up last month. That we got it in before kickoff for them. Their video area is 14 by 25. Total board's 18 by 25. In the upper left is the Bloomsburg area. They have a board that's 17 by 25, and their video is 8 by 14. So just to see some other comparable schools in the area and some of our newer boards that we have in the Central PA region. Do we have any questions on any, before I want to turn it over to our sports marketing program, do we have any questions about the equipment or any of the video renderings that you just saw? Okay. Hearing none, if we go to the next slide is Daktronics Sports Marketing. And this is how Daktronics partners with the school district in helping raise funds to, kind of cut into the cost of the initial investment and create new revenue streams for the school district and the athletic department. I'm going to turn it over to Pete Riefenrath, which is our Northeast representative in this area. And Pete, floor is yours.
Yeah, I'll take it from there. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Good. Appreciate the time to talk to everybody. Again, Joe did a great job kind of highlighting a couple of different options we put together. I mainly want to talk about my kind of portion of the project. My name is Pete Riefenrath. I handle our Daktronics Sports Marketing. Most of the times when we do a project of this size, obviously it's a bit bigger and better than what a traditional school would look at from a scoreboard perspective. We get into the area of sports sponsorship, donors, fundraising. That's my specialty. Was heavily involved on the Central Columbia project, heavily involved on the Southern Lehigh project as well. We're a service that goes back to the late 90s. Daktronics is the industry leader in the sports side from a scoring, video, and sound perspective. We started in the video side on the professional level, got down to the colleges. Now here we are in the high school. It's almost the same thing with sports sponsorship and advertising. Started at the major league level, down to the college. Now here we are at the high school. And we come to the from a value standpoint. We will help you guys go out into the community to secure sponsors. For example, at Central Columbia, if you see those, and I know you guys probably can't see, I provided a prospectus if you guys want to go to that, just to scroll through it. Don't need to go to a specific page. But if you want to look at that board itself, or even the Southern Lehigh, kind of how we get to the point of getting out and selling sponsorship with you in your group, I got a couple of different documents. One is a market evaluation. Essentially, we want to take a look at the facility to see how many people come through on an annual basis. That allows us to do a couple of things. One, it allows us to hone in on the right price point. So we know in 10 meetings with a potential sponsor, we're going to be successful 7 out of 10 times. If we want to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of generating more revenue through a project like this, we could have a higher price point, but a lower success rate in terms of number of overall meetings. And we'll take that information in terms of number of people who come to the facility and what you're willing to offer a sponsor, and create a nice, shiny proposal, which, again, I don't know if we're able to view that or not. I sent that over. But once we have that proposal, we work to figure out kind of who are our valuable targets in your areas, the larger industries, the major employers, all the way on down to the mom and pops. Our program is something that's such that, we're not trying to create an opportunity that's just for the larger dollars or marketing budgets in the area. We'll put together 2 to 3 to 4 different levels of sponsorship so that every business of size in your area will see their name up in lights. And then our big kind of selling point, too, is every dollar we raise, you keep. We don't take a cut, a split, or a fee. So every dollar we raised with Central Columbia and Southern Lehigh went 100 cents on the dollar back to the school. But obviously, there's a little bit of help that we need from the schools then to maybe come up with 2 to 3 people that are able to kind of commit some time to help create the proposal, help set up those conversations, and then be available to go out and meet with those sponsors. So that's kind of our take on how we do it in terms of what we sell. We don't do the traditional, wraps on the fence. We'll do 30-second commercials, game sponsorships, kiosks out front on a given night, halftime recognition, and really build that into a package where we can allow businesses in your area to drive traffic back through their doors on a Monday based on what fans heard on a Friday Night Lights. So, for example, at Central Columbia, each of those 5 anchor partners, our larger sponsors, both Central Columbia and Southern Lehigh sold out their major partnerships. And so for a Central Columbia, each of those 5 anchor partners were paying $10,000 a year for a 5-year commitment. So each of those 5 sponsors were paying $50,000 in total. So, again, just something to keep into your back of mind in terms of kind of how we're able to approach this project. Have a lot of success there in your area. We certainly want to get you in touch with Central Columbia to hear how that project went, if need be. But again, really excited about the project. Just would love to hear kind of your thoughts and feelings on how to move forward.
I have ready for questions.
I think so, yes.
All right. I have a few, please. Hi, this is Chris. Thank you for, first of all, taking the time and allowing us to learn a little bit more about this. I have a few questions. What is the projected lifespan of this system?
Nick, you want to take that?
Yeah, so,
Yeah, Nick, or I. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
and so, the minimum, so all the LEDs or the video displays are rated for 100,000 light hours, and the half-life of 100,000 light hours roughly is about 11 years is the half-life. Theoretically, the product will last longer than the technology. Technology is what's going to force you to replace this display in probably 12 to 15, 14, 15 years, somewhere around there. We do have displays that still are lasting 20 years, and we'll still be able to support them. Daktronics will support every product for 10 years after the last manufactured date. So if we continue to make this product line for the next 2 years, then you'll have 12 years of product support guaranteed.
So could you, and I appreciate that, so then when you say product support, what does that mean? Define that for me. You talking about warranty, parts, and labor, or?
All of the above. So warranty, be parts, be labor, be product. We will still manufacture the LEDs. We will still manufacture the power supplies. We will take care of everything. The software, the control software, will probably need to be updated in roughly 5 to 7, maybe 8 years. And that is only because the computers that are used to drive these things get better and better, day by day. And, the PCs that we put in today have to be rejuvenated and reinstated. Very similar to a cell phone, right? You get a cell phone this year, it goes out of date in 3 years, you got to get a new one in 4. Computers work, laptops work the exact same way.
Is that part what you just described? Is that all factored into the sales price, or is that
The product
upgrades, and any kind of progression in that direction?
So the software, the product support is already factored into that. The control software is not factored into that because sometimes it needs upgraded in 6 years, and sometimes it needs to be upgraded in 9 years. That all depends on the use of the computer and how up to date you like to be with the software.
Okay, I appreciate that as well. One other element on the marketing side, have we looked at any ROI for this investment as we consider this? We're not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet.
All right. Okay. And I don't know if there's any kind of benchmarks they have for the ROI part of it, or
what we have looked, kind of rough numbers in terms of comparable projects. We did ask that question about Central Columbia. You saw their average of $50,000. What was Central's annual?
It was over 50. Last time we checked, I think it was around 60 with those secondary and third tier packages.
So over 60 a year there, and so. Go ahead.
I guess, Jason, I would speak for Pete here, but typically the way Pete does the marketing plan is it's within 5 years. So if the product price comes in at $400,000, we try to get you $400,000 in permanent advertising over the course of 5 years. So that way, in the 5th year, your 6th year, all that money comes into the school district.
So you're paid back.
And we can do that.
5.
Paid back.
Yep.
Or you can do that in 4 years. You can do that in 6 years.
And on a traditional project, those anchor partners, the highest level of sponsors, that's usually who we're leaning on to take on, the financial bulk responsibility. That secondary tier, that founding and premier, schools that go out and bring that in, that's all dollars coming in that goes towards whatever, but that's not allocated towards kind of that annual threshold. We kind of lean on those larger sponsors to be our main kind of drivers of the project. So most of the time, projects like this, once we get past that anchor partner level, are cash flow positive at that point.
Okay. So just real quick, I'm sorry if I'm throwing some words around. ROI is return on investment, so it really gives us a view of, based on some historic information or some kind of forecast that we would look at, lean on them or build ourselves. It would give us an indication of what we should look at with some consideration on when you get that cost. What, $400,000. So I just was sharing that for the audience too, just to make it more relevant for everybody in this session.
Yep, and the biggest thing on our end is that market evaluation, just getting a snapshot on an annual basis of how many people come to the facility. That's what really allows us to hone in on the right price point. Once we know how many spectators, eyeballs, rear ends in the seats, that's where we can really start to build out what we think we can get for each of those major sponsors, and then thereon after the subsequent lower level packages.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Questions? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thanks,
folks. Appreciate the time. Have a good evening, and we'll talk soon.
Right. Yeah, we finished with that part. Could I just add one more?
Are they off the line? Because I want to ask something too.
Yeah, I do too.
Nothing.
Are you still there?
Are they still there?
Yep, we're still here.
Okay. I have something when they're actually off the line, and that's okay if they know that.
Else while they're on?
Nothing against the company, but have we talked to anyone else that provides the same services?
Am I hung up with everybody?
We have talked to some degree.
So there is competition for this.
There is competition.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Go
Yeah, the only other thing, and if we probably brought up, and I apologize to my teammates on the athletic committee, but where are we on timeline for need? The need aspect of our current system versus moving forward with something like this. I think ROI is huge because that gives you an indication of when you can get your money back and in what time frame, because you're going to have to lay the capital out on the front end and have some forecast of where we get it back on the other side of that. And then the other thing is, like, are we talking like if we don't do this in the year, then we're going to be paying 3 times as much for maintenance, or we run the risk of like catastrophic fail? Like, where are we on that element of it? Can somebody, do we know? I mean, if we don't know, we don't know, but I just want to pose that.
I asked that information when I first came on board. I think the best information I got was an approximate 2 to 3 year kind of span on the current system that's down there.
2 to 3 years?
Yeah, that it would. It's probably over 20 years old right now.
We are,
stadium.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, we are having problems with frequencies with play clocks.
We get football games when we get a lot of these stations, the play clock. And that's what go out when we have a big game that happened last year from Sun. The other issue is our sound system in the stadium is not good. Tim game and something.
Now, that's the problem area, but now they are, here's where Jason is aware of this also, and we are, me and Sherry, and because unfortunately, Chris, you weren't there. They are offering promotion items right now. If there is a purchase made by November 1st, we possibly could get a 3.5% finance with this purchase, have it installed by graduation next year.
Yeah, and what I asked them to do with this was actually work the 3.5, like they had different options for if we were to commit by November 1st. I asked them to actually work that into upgrades that were necessary at a cheaper cost. So it actually brought the cost down from the original prices by about $20,000, if you recall, $20,000 to $25,000 for the entire system, rather than the 3.5%. Because after talking with Mr. Sokolowski, certainly could be a capital reserve purchase, and then we're not paying any interest. We're literally paying ourselves back and saving more of the money up front than what we would have at the original cost. I would also say, one of the things Mr. Gump could attest to is that there are currently plans and widely popular plans from everything that we've heard to move high school graduation back to the stadium. Right now, that would be about a $10,000 a year cost for equipment rental. Just so yes, this is a great possibility for alternative sources of revenue, but I think it also is there are ways that we would actually spend less money that couldn't necessarily be accounted in as revenue, just less expenditures going out in some capacity. So that would be an additional $50,000 at least over a 5-year span that would be not spent out of the budget.
What are the challenges of operating a system like this?
So the biggest challenges are getting enough people. Honestly, a base system to just run it as a scoreboard.
That's easy.
That's pretty easy. There are we could get a slew of people to do that. Quite frankly, not looking to run full live video on it because you need somebody who has a very, very deep understanding of the scoreboard. That's not a problem. They will provide that level of training, but then you're dependent upon whoever gets that training to be at every event when you plan to do that. However, what we saw, we did go down. Ms. Cooper and Mr. Bognetz went with us down to Bloomsburg just to look at kind of the software. It can be learned relatively quickly by several people how to operate software that is dynamic, interesting, not your static numbers up there for multiple sports. There are graphics and sound effects that can be done. relatively easily. I'm not going to say easily, but certainly what we would want to do if we went down that road is lean on a group of people to that would bring new, preferably students in. I will speak from experience. My son learned how to use that scoreboard there, and he had a great part-time job watching his high school peers play different sports, and he ran the board.
Thank you.
Can I just finish this discussion, at least for my own edification? So I'm struggling with an expenditure of $425,000 in a school district that we're trying to right the ship and get things to where they need to be, and what that expenditures are going to compromise, because if we spend the money on this, we're not spending it somewhere else. So with that said, the other part, which you touched on, and I think Coach Alverson had touched on, was it's more than this, right? We're talking about an infrastructure too. So we buy the scoreboard. Let's just move down that path. We have infrastructure to consider. We've got a sound system. We got like the wiring. I presume, so it's not just the cost of the scoreboard.
Yeah,
No, that is the
that's
installation.
inclusive of the sound system
That's
and
all
everything.
that's all everything. That's
And those
turnkey, 100%.
Yes, installation
Okay.
and everything,
Fair
freight,
enough.
even shipping.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I will say the sound system on those things are very impressive in terms of.
In the central, I saw those. It's like real.
Where are we, on next?
Because you're talking about pushing this quickly because
Well,
of
that's what the
financing option, and I'm reading some people like, I know how I feel about financing scoreboards. It's not something I'm really supporting. I'm not against the scoreboard itself, but if we have to finance it.
Yeah, if we were going to save, if we were going to save the money that is in that incentive package, we would need to have the order placed by November 1st, which means we would have to vote on it in October's board meeting. If we were not to do that, the cost at that point in time essentially goes up another $25,000, $30,000.
Or we don't do it right now.
Or we don't do it right now.
That's another option.
How do you want to proceed?
Don't do it right now.
I'll just express my major concern is in the current economic environment, finding sponsors who are willing to spend a substantial amount of money.
On a continuous basis.
They're talking ROI in 5 years. We got to generate $80,000 of revenue each year to get to 400,000. You have to, right?
Well,
Pretty simple math, just for
period,
context.
Yeah.
So we'd have to come up with 80 grand a year.
And help with that?
Yes.
Pay it off in
That's part
5
of the
years. Well, it's not even all, but let's just say round numbers, 80 grand a year.
I mean, our biggest employer in the area is undergoing, shall we say, economic difficulties.
On the other hand of that, I do see as Central has done it, Bloomsburg has done it. I mean, I do see the opportunity out there for the return on investment. Within 5 years, 80,000, they said that they secure 50 to 60,000 with the permanent. I mean, there is other options there, halftime's brought to you by the Burger King or whatever. I mean, there is other sponsorship program that we could add to, just not from just the permanent sponsors.
I think you make a great point, but the other part of that counter argument is that those people committed at Central are going to want to go, yeah, we'll do them too. I mean, we don't have endless amounts of opportunity, and if they've already committed to Central, I don't know how those agreements are shaped. We run the risk of being in that predicament too.
It's really hard betting on the come, and that's what you're doing. You're betting on the come, and because you don't know who's going to sponsor any. We have no idea. It'd be nice if we'd done some kind of study before we were asked to vote to see who would be interested in doing that.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's exactly the way I was thinking. Is there a way to test the marketing, advertising
before we spend the
waters
money.
out there?
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, we stand as much chance going to Vegas and chucking some dice.
We did this
Right.
type of thing at Berwick, and we never had a shortage of advertisers. We always found them, but we weren't looking for $400,000 either. You know,
Do we have a sense of how much the current cost is for the maintenance of the current system? How much is
long
that?
it's gonna
How much is that
last.
costing us per year now for the maintenance and the issues that are? Okay. Well, that probably would be helpful to get a clearer picture of, because it is costing us something now, the current system. Just curious if we could get that.
I think we need some kind of cost-benefit analysis to
Yeah.
weigh all those elements, because that's a great point, because we're gonna have ongoing maintenance costs, we're gonna have some projection of the needs for some costs if we're gonna make our decision based on a return on investment concept. I think we really need to have some kind of better view. And then the other last, and I'll take a deep breath and sit back, is the other thing is I think we should allow some time for the public to weigh in on something like this. It's a
Yeah.
big deal.
No, I agree, Chris. I think we're going to need something like this at some point. We know that time is coming
Yeah,
soon.
that's the reality.
But it's something that needs more conversation. So we'll put it back out and talk about it a little bit more next month after we all have a chance to think about it. And I don't personally feel that having a company tell us it needs to be done a certain time because there's a 3% financing is at all something that makes me think I want to decide quicker. That actually makes me wonder who else is out there that has this type of product that maybe tactic with us. So that's just my feeling. But I do think we need to move on it. We can't just forget about it. So we'll keep it on each month until we get to the point where we can move or say no. Move on to someone else. Anything else on this topic? Okay. We are at 6.1, I believe, Siemens, invoice 533103693. The board will take action to approve payment of invoice number 533103693 in the amount of $17,550.09. Final payment to Siemens for Liberty Valley fire alarm replacement as presented. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Got a second? Richard and Mike. Any questions or comments on the payment to Siemens? Okay, Terry?
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yeah.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 6.2, items for bid. Board will take action to approve the sale of the following items through an online bid process. Am I okay to pass by all of those and just say we're going with that package? Any objection to that? Okay, they are all listed here. Is there a motion to approve?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Okay, and just for the audience, there's a list of 10 to 12 things here, and they get a little bit detailed. So, Terry, go ahead.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 6.3, disposal of items. The board will take action to approve the disposal of the contents of a sea can at Liberty Valley and outdated textbooks as presented. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Bogdan, Mr. Clauser. Questions or comments? Okay. Here.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 7.1, Boys Lacrosse Co-op. The board will take action to approve the sponsorship of a cooperative agreement until terminated with the Warrior Run Area School District for Boys Lacrosse. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion from Mr.
Second.
Cooper, second from Mr. Huron.
Could,
Questions, comments? Go ahead.
I think one really incredibly, there was a lot of great dialogue. I think I would caution everybody that's going to cast a vote to be exceedingly, and Ms. Michaels, you made a tremendous point because I had it in my thought pattern. I didn't bring it to get it clarified. If we've got precedent, be very careful with precedent. And I'm just going to put it out there. I've said how I feel about some of my other thoughts on this particular topic, but we've got precedent. And I think that's really important to consider when we make our vote.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'd forgotten about that. I appreciate you bringing it up. But I remember talking to a parent of a swimmer from the Christian school years ago about this, and I think Mrs. Ross remembers this as well. And it was productive for the swimmers, for the team. And I will be the first to say here publicly that I've swung on this. I started off, I was not really crazy about it. I was probably leaning toward voting against it because of that same, we look at the Danville kids and that's who we're elected for. But I think looking at the totality of everything, and I appreciate all the information you brought to us, I know I've swung the other way and I'll be supporting it. So any other comments, questions?
Can we name a sport where Danville has enough kids to field their own team, and yet we allow others to come in from another district? My traditional definition that I'm in the understanding is if you have two districts that do not have enough kids to form a team, then they can combine as a co-op to form a team.
Yeah.
We're voting on bringing kids in from another district, yet we have enough kids to fill our own team.
Mike, I think you're right, and I don't think that we do have that situation. I'm going to tell you a couple of things I thought, because I've heard 10 things in favor and 10 against, and they all made sense. Sustainability of the program, I think, is really important. We don't have a middle school program. We don't have any freshmen committed because we didn't have a middle school program. We probably will by spring, but we don't know how many. There are only 4 or 5 boys lacrosse programs in District 4. There's 5 girls, I think, and we're so successful. The girls have won multiple district titles in a row. The boys just won it. I think it's incumbent upon us to do whatever we can to sustain this sport moving forward, and this is one piece that does that. The ability to play more JV sports, I think, is more JV contests, I think is really important, growing it throughout central Pennsylvania. And I also think that Chris made the point about being a little bit more global in our thinking. We're accepting 339 kids from out of district, and they're playing sports. I remember in track, my daughter was on the track team. We had a girl from Milton. She was a great asset to the program. Good kid, deserved the opportunity. I just think that, we're here for kids and across and again, respectful of everybody's opinions. There are a lot of great points on both sides, but that's the way I would answer that piece of it, and that's where I'm at. So,
but if I could just, maybe if it's a fair point, I appreciate that, Mike, but the point of clarity is, and tell me if I get this part wrong, if we didn't have that, and I'm looking at you because you made such a great point, but like, if we didn't have those additional swimmers coming from our districts, it wouldn't mean we wouldn't have a swim program, right? We'd still have a swim program. We may not be as strong. We might have had certain events and so it's really not like none. Now we have one. It's like we have one, and this just fortified and gave these student athletes an opportunity to be part of something.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked something up.
But it's a fair point. I get why you would have said that, Mike.
One of the other reasons why they have co-ops, and you're exactly right, if 2 schools don't have enough, but another thing that I read, we talked about the contiguous border. I think the PIAA suspended that at some point because of COVID, because some of the smaller schools were losing sports, and they allowed it even more globally. And it was Albert Gallatin at some school in Western PA wanted to combine. They weren't close, and they come back to that thing that it doesn't necessarily have to be 2 schools. It can be a couple students at one school that don't have it want to join on to a bigger school, which is what we're doing right now. So, again, I respect what everybody says. I think we all do and appreciate the discussion. Go ahead.
I mean, I have other concerns also, and that's, and Coach, I don't want to offend you or anything, but I'm going to use you because you're here, and for no other reason. If Coach is out there and he's watching some league game somewhere, not scholastic lacrosse game, and he sees 2 kids from Mifflinburg who doesn't have a lacrosse team, and they're like these stellar players that would really help our team, what's to stop them from saying, hey, you can come play, we let the kids from Warrior Run come, why can't we let these guys come? They don't have a team. It's the same scenario. Now you're going to get into the things where good old Coach Curry from Berwick suffered for many years. It's no longer a call. They're recruiting in Danville. I don't want to see that happen either. And I'm not saying that that's anything what's going on. That's what public opinion's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You were up in Berwick. You know that was a fact. That was accused day and night up there.
Sure was.
And it looks,
accused.
could look, I should say, a lot like that, and I don't want to see that.
Okay, understood. Mr. Albertson, you had your hand up. You have something?
Because it has to be a bordering school for the next
we just answered it.
as that program.
But does it
Yeah.
still, I don't think it does have to be boarding school anymore.
Does it? Yeah. Yeah, I think they suspended that at one point, but I don't think they did it permanently. I think that was, yeah, that was temporary. Other questions, comments from the board before we bring this to a vote? We have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, just vote your conscience. Go ahead.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
No.
Mr. Clauser,
No.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations. And thank you for all the information you provided and coming out and speaking with us tonight. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Can I just say, the only reason I ended up voting yes in the end was because the amount of work the coaches put in to prove the case. So, from my perspective, that's the thing that changed my opinion.
Very well done.
And I have to say, Colin, I like your writing skills. Very passionate, very organized, very convincing.
Always the teacher.
Then I'm not surprised.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on with the remainder of the agenda. 8.1, Academic Affairs Consent Items. Board will take action to approve Academic Affairs Items 8.2, 8.3, 8.4, 8.5, 8.6, 8.7 through 8.13. They are consecutive and contiguous.
I would like to pull some out. Can I do that, or how do I do
Take a look, everyone.
that? Is it okay?
Yeah, yeah.
I
We're going to
just
look
wanna-
at them before we do a motion and determine if there's anything that we think we may not
Sure.
have unanimous consent. So let's let everybody look at them, and then we'll come back to the one that you want to pull, or two or more, okay? Anyone, anything that you would like to see pulled if you had sufficient time to take a look at things?
Me.
I know you do, June. Which would you like to have out?
8.2 and 8.8.
8.2 and 8.8 will be removed.
Correct.
Anything else that you'd like to have removed? Remind when we get to them so that we 8.2 and 8.8. All right. Okay. Any more? Okay, the board will take action to approve following consent items 8.3 through 8.7 and 8.9 to 8.13. 13. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments on all of those as consent items? Okay, Terry?
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. So they're all approved. Then we'll move to 8.2, DPS ELA Curriculum Overview Document, second reading. Board will take action to approve the second reading of the DPS ELA Curriculum Overview Documents as presented. This was pulled from consent, so we did a motion to approve.
So moved.
And a second. Okay, do we have another motion? This is where if you want to table, you would make a motion to table.
I want to make a motion to table.
Okay.
Do I say why, or?
We would need a second for the motion to table.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Vogt seconds. Mrs. Heater made the motion to table. Now we need discussion, so go ahead.
Sure. So the reason that I tabled it was because I had some information brought to my attention regarding the concerns that are happening at the primary school with ELA curriculum. When the curriculum was purchased, I did ask that we made sure that all the non-evidence-based research practices were taken out of the curriculum, and that is not the case. That's being done correctly right now at the primary school. I also know that in looking at the curriculum, what's being asked to be done is not developmentally appropriate, especially particular in the area of kindergarten. I did meet with Molly and Wayne this morning and Jason, and Molly did talk about, you know, working to make things, figure things out, basically to talk about different things and make sure it's correct. So I feel approving at this time the curriculum is just not something that we should do because it's not in the best interest of all the students in K-2.
Other comments or questions?
Could you, I didn't catch what you said about wasn't pulled out. I'm sorry, June.
So the big push across the nation now is that children need to have evidence-based practices to teach literacy because of the fact that across the United States, literacy scores are so low. Where I come from, where I work, that's what we do across the nation. So there's specific requirements for teaching literacy. So it needs to be explicit, systematic. You need to be prescriptive and diagnostic. I've found instances at each level, K-2, with a new curriculum that was purchased, which we knew before was purchased had some non-evidence-based items in it, but they were going to be removed. They were not all removed, and there are teachers that are doing some of those practices because they're in the curriculum. So I think it's a miscommunication of what's going on. I just want to make sure that the students are set up for success instead of rehashing and doing the same old thing that's not producing better results. So because of that, that's why I'm asking for this to be pulled.
Thank you.
Can I just, I don't know who wants to answer this, but I'm going to just put this out there. So I'm sure that we have state standards. We have a curriculum that's based upon the standards. Now we have materials to help us teach the curriculum.
Correct.
But the materials aren't always going to be exactly what's in the curriculum.
Correct.
Correct. So if there are things that are in the materials that aren't part of the curriculum or don't meet the standards, we wouldn't teach those things.
Correct.
Does what we have still allow us to address all the state standards and what is in our curriculum?
So I certainly, and we had an opportunity to meet today, respect where Mrs. Heater's coming from and want to make sure we're doing the right things for students. The documents that we have here, and I also respect the idea of tabling it so we can look at academic affairs. So I'm not suggesting we move forward. I would just want to name, when we're looking at curriculum overview documents, we don't purchase a product to be our curriculum. Our curriculum is standards based. So what you'll see here are documents that do cover all of the components of science of reading. So you're going to see a phonemic awareness overview document, a phonics one, fluency. You'll see vocabulary and comprehension, and also going into our writing. So I do believe that the concerns that Mrs. Heater expressed have to do with sort of like the daily lesson plan level of practice that we obviously need to correct to make sure those things aren't happening. But I don't believe that they are present in these overview documents because these are standards based. But I certainly want to make sure when we're thinking about curriculum, we're thinking about overview, unit plans, lesson plans. The board's responsibility is to approve that overview document. But I would want us to feel comfortable certainly with how that overview document is funneling down into a daily lesson
So holding
plan.
off for another month is not going to hurt us in any way moving forward.
I would feel comfortable with us doing that if that would make
So-
the board feel more comfortable, certainly.
Because I know a little bit, but a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing.
Sure.
I'm just trying to learn a little more about it, and then another month would help. Go ahead, Dr. Green.
So June, would that be unacceptable? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, because there's things that just really need to be looked at. I mean, I realize too that I understand what Molly's saying about the components. The components are there, but it's also how you're doing the instruction. So it's not just having the components there. I realize these are overviews, but there's so many issues right now at the primary school level, and everyone knows why I was on this board to straighten this out. And I just can't approve anything right now because it just needs to be finalized and really looked at with a fine-tooth comb because it's just not producing. It's not following the science of reading. It has components, but what's being taught, the lesson plans are not. I know these are curriculum overviews, however, everything has to align.
I would name that curriculum overview documents don't you have to do work to get to that daily lesson plan. So I don't believe the concerns presented are here in these documents, but I certainly respect how it's funneling down.
Well, and I think they just need people to look at them. You know, I think they were sent out less than a week to us as well. And I was hammered this weekend with all of this. So.
Well, this is the second read, so they...
Right, but knowing now with this, I need to make sure that
Sure.
they're okay.
Okay. And you have a meeting.
We have a meeting on
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes, so
correct?
we can
Perfect.
certainly address
Okay,
that.
great. All right, can we move forward with the vote on this? Is there anybody else that has anything that they'd like to ask or comment on this topic? Gary?
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Just to, this is the vote to table 8.2.
Vote to table.
Yes.
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 8.8, can I assume we're going to repeat the same conversation?
Correct.
I believe so.
Okay, can we get a motion to, then to table and a second and then?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Mr. Clauser, Mrs. Cooper, questions, comments? We're kind of repeating the same thing. Does anybody want to say anything in addition? Or are we ready to vote?
This, how time sensitive is this?
That-
How
yeah,
time
that's why I
sensitive
asked.
does it also affect kind of like the day-to-day stuff we're in the midst of?
So we're in a position right now where we had presented to the board sort of a schedule of curriculum coming before you throughout this year. There is not board approved curriculum sort of across the board. So although we're trying to stay with that timeline, we certainly want people to feel comfortable with that vote. And so we would be okay to save it for a month.
And so, can I ask you a question, Jude? Are there concrete things in this each of these individuals that you want targeted that you've already laid out or have some idea of?
Within those documents?
Yeah.
Within those documents, I just want to make sure that they're aligning with what I'm seeing and know is supposed to be there. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think
And
so.
I'll gladly present, if anyone needs me to present and explain all this, I'd be more than happy to.
I just want to make sure that we, I know you have a huge amount of, way more knowledge in this field than I do, and a huge amount of knowledge and guidance in this. I just want to make sure that we have an understanding of what the concrete things are that will change as we look at these documents. And it sounds like you have some idea of what you want to look at as we start to move forward.
Right.
Okay.
I think what Molly and
that's
I
all.
need to do is just sit down and figure this, yeah.
More time will benefit us more.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Gary, go ahead.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 8:12 and 8:13 we already did. 14, okay, got it. The board will take action, this is 8:14, to approve Danville student number 111326 to attend a Central Columbia 339 program. Communication technology / technicians and support services 10.999 beginning the 23-24 school year. Danville Area School District will be paying tuition to Central Columbia School District. Motion to approve.
Second.
You'd be the first. I'm asking for a motion. to approve.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think I can make the first motion.
Second.
Second.
Thank
there
you.
go.
I'll go first, you want to go second?
Thank you.
Okay. Got it. Mr. Riker, Dr. Green, questions or comments on the 339? Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 10.1, August 2023 finance reports are at the bottom. 10.2, you have your cash receipts. And then 10.3, we actually need to move on. 10.3, the bills for payment from August 9th through September 6th, 2023. The board will take action to approve the bills for payment for August 9th, 2023 through September 6th, 2023.
Motion.
Motion, second. Questions or comments on the bills?
I'm sorry, who's second?
First, second. Yeah. He's close. Okay. Any questions or comments on the bills? Are we finished paying for Liberty Valley? Is that done?
There's a couple outstanding
There's still some
bills
things
yet
happening?
still coming.
Is there work happening or is it just bills that are coming?
There's still bills in the final payments on several of the contractors.
But the
not
work's
much.
complete?
That I can't answer.
There's still a problem with the walls at Liberty Valley that we're in a little bit of a stalemate with the contractor, but nothing is currently being paid until we come to resolution on those.
All right, fair enough. Thank you.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert.
Abstain.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 10.4, Tax Collector Audit Report. The board will take action upon the recommendation of the business manager to accept the December 31st, 2022 Tax Collector Audit Report as presented. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Anyone?
Second.
There you go. Questions or comments on the audit? We get a copy of that then at some point? We want
Yes,
it?
it's attached.
It
to
is
the
there?
audit. Yes, and I
That's it.
just want to thank the tax collectors and Beth Norman in my office, an excellent
Okay.
job. There's no findings.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 10.5, the high school dishwasher. Board will take action upon the recommendation of the business manager to purchase and install a Hobart dishwasher to include dispenser and water softener for the high school from Alto Hartley Incorporated KPN contract number 202000704 at a total cost of $112,466 using food service funds. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments? My first reaction is this is an awfully expensive dishwasher.
Yes.
Is that installed?
That's everything, yeah, it's installed. I have to follow federal guidelines because it's federal funding, so you have
Right.
prevailing wage, you have all these strings attached, so, yeah, it's quite complex.
It is replacing the original dishwasher
Yeah.
to the Deal building.
Oh. Wow. That was
Yes.
the 70s.
I hope the next one
Yes,
takes
we
that
hope it
long.
lasts
Yeah,
that
that's
long.
Or as high school. Wow. All right. Okay. Any other comments or questions on the dishwasher? All right. Go ahead.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 10.6, natural gas and electricity rates to authorize administration, motion to authorize administration to execute the necessary documentation to lock in the natural gas and electricity rates with guidance from the energy consultant, which is Provident, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. This is what we approved a month or two ago, that they'll go out and negotiate on our behalf. They take part of what we make off of it, but it's pretty minimal. Any other questions or comments on this? Gary, go ahead.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Personnel consent items, 11.1, the board will take action to approve personnel items 11.2 through 11.12. They're continuous. Want to take a look at them? Looks like we have some retirements. Any questions or comments, or anything, I guess actually, anything you want to pull out first? See you look up, we'll move on. Anybody, anything that you want pulled off of the consent items? All right. Mike, you all right? Daryl? Okay. Motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions or comments? Gary, go ahead.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichert.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Where did we go there?
We're at 11.13.
13, I see. Okay, thank you. 11.13, winter coaches. The board will take action to approve the winter coaches for the 23-24 school year. Boys basketball, Gary Grozier, step 29, 8,000. Girls basketball, Matt Diltz, TBD. Bowling, Andrew Arnold, step 8, 8,000. Swimming, Danielle Stickland, step 9, 8,000. Wrestling, Seth Kanaski, step 12, 8,000. Middle school girls basketball, Mike Wool, step 9, $3,368.52. And middle school girls basketball, Abby Blasick, step 7, $31.14.38. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the determination for
Yeah, I
Matt?
was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, actually,
because-
Matt has already been approved.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So he was approved at step 1, but he had prior years of service, and what we understand is that, and that is totally on me putting that forward. My understanding is that historically what we have done is if they had assistant varsity coaching experience, we gave them a step for each 2 years towards that. So that should be amended to withdraw Matt Diltz's name from this motion.
Okay. Can I have a motion to amend?
Motion to amend.
Second. I'm sorry, go ahead.
To remove Matt Diltz from.
Okay.
Vote.
Okay. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Barry, you want to vote to amend and take Matt Diltz's name out? Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Real quick, so what's, I didn't understand that, I'm sorry. Maybe I just drifted a little.
Matt-
Yeah, I know Matt, but what's the logic here?
He was actually priorly approved.
He was previously
We
approved.
previously
Yeah.
approved him.
Yeah, a couple months ago?
Yeah.
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 I thought.
He's previously approved. It's just that there's no number behind it.
Did we approve a number before?
We did approve a number. We
was
approved
already-
him at step 1. So what I would say is that next month, we would bring a revised, adjusted salary.
Because
for
our
Matt.
past, I don't want to call it past practice.
No,
'cause that's
past history.
Contractual, but our past history has been that we've credited assistant
Basically a
time,
half
which
a
you
year
had
for-
with the boys, and we've given that.
Yes.
Okay. Does that all make sense? Is everybody okay with that?
So
piece
we're
of
going to
it?
evaluate where he should have been from the last.
Correct.
Sounds like.
And then make it right the next way. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to amend and pull Matt's name out. Did you second it, Mike, or did somebody second? And we've discussed, Terry, we'll have to vote to amend.
I think you have to ask for public comment, though, on the amendment.
I think we do, yeah. Is there any public comment on this, on the removal of Matt Diltz, because he was previously approved and we need to modify the compensation in the future on another board meeting? Yeah.
He was the assistant.
He was an assistant
Assistant
boys
boys
coach
coach.
and is becoming the head girls coach
Yes.
in our
Yes.
district.
In our district,
And
yes.
we previously credited in similar circumstances, so if we find any other circumstances like this, please bring them and we'll.
Yeah, we'll adjust.
We'll look at it.
Yes.
Okay. 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 So we've done that. Any other public comment on that item? Okay, go ahead, Terry.
Okay. Did we first and second the amendment?
We did. It was Richard and Mike.
Okay, I know what I did.
Okay.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. And now we need a motion to approve, that the board will take action to approve the winter coaches for the 23-24 school year with the list that we went through, with the exception of Matt Diltz.
I so motion.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second. Questions, comments? Okay. Terry?
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. I can get back to that. What number was it? Oh, this one. Okay. All right. 1114, Head Start discretionary compensation payments. The board will take action to approve the discretionary compensation payments for the Head Start pre-K staff as presented. We have a motion to approve.
I motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Do we need an explanation on this?
Could we please, real quick,
Go ahead.
Linda, can
Linda,
you
would
speak?
you?
thank you for that.
Okay. Any other? Did we get a motion and a second on this, Terry? I'm sorry, we're dealing
We
with
did.
something.
We had Mrs. Cooper first, Mr. Reichert second.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Are we ready?
Any other questions, comments, or any more information you need before we vote on this? Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yeah.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichert,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 11.15, new hire, custodian. The board will take action to approve the employment of Ken Schmidt as a custodian at the high school at the contracted hourly rate of $13.70, pending the receipt of all clearances and paperwork. Motion to approve.
I motion. I second.
Okay, questions or comments?
Yeah, please.
Gary, you
I'd like to
may-
call a brief executive session, if we could go back and talk. Back, and Terry, you know where we are with the motion in a second, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
We're gonna
Mrs.
go back
Heater,
into
Mrs.
the
Cooper.
room.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 11.16, support personnel agreement. We have the board will take action to approve the memorandum of agreement between Danville Area School District and the Danville Area Educational Support Personnel Association.
I motion.
Motion. Second.
I'll second.
So if you're wondering why I'm here looking sick as a dog, this is the reason. I'm COVID negative, thank you very much. And this is day 5, so I'm not contagious, or I wouldn't put you at risk. But I just want to say thanks to the administrative staff for helping to negotiate the support agreement. And I want to say thank you to the support staff union for negotiating with us honestly and fairly. It was done in the same spirit that the teachers' negotiations were done, and I think we had a fairly successful and collaborative agreement that came out of it. I also want to say thanks to the board, because the way that we did both these agreements was a little bit unorthodox, and I sort of felt like I had good support from the board throughout. This took a little longer to get across the finish line because of some legal stuff, but it's, I think, a good agreement for the school district, it's a good agreement for the support staff, and it's a good agreement for the kids, most importantly. And I think it'll allow us to attract high-quality candidates to the district to do some of the more difficult jobs that exist in the district. Before I was on the school board, I had no idea what a para did. That's one hell of a difficult job. So, and the teachers need them. So that's why I'm here today, even though I'm sick. And I just wanted to say a little something about it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We appreciate everything everyone's doing to move these things forward, and we're ready to vote. Go ahead.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Riker.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 12.1, policy and insurance consent items. The board will take action to approve policy and insurance items 12.2, 3, 4, and 5. Take a look and see if there's anything you'd like pulled.
I'd just like to name that those are all first reads.
Right.
So
Okay.
not final approvals.
Okay. Anything you want taken away from here?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'd like to pull out 12.3.
12.3. Okay. Any others? .3 will not be consent. Anything else you would like pulled? Okay, let's get a motion to approve on the others. Anyone? Got a
Second.
motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the other 3 items? Okay, we're ready to vote.
Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater.
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes.
Mr. Reichard.
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz.
Yes.
Mr. Clauser.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner.
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 12.3. Board will take action to approve the first reading of policy 819, suicide awareness, prevention, and response as presented. We need a motion to approve in a second, and we can start discussion on that one, if we
A
could.
motion.
Second.
Peter, Dr. Green. Questions, comments? Dr. Faulkner, go ahead.
Yeah, the first thing I would want to say is that this read versus the original is definitely an improvement. There was clearly a lot of work done in making sure that some of the gaps that were filled in the original policy were filled. I think that there still are some lingering gaps, and I don't feel comfortable with where the policy is currently passing on the first read without some additional discussion with some of the key elements of the policy itself.
Okay.
We also have the opportunity to have that discussion this Wednesday if you want.
Yeah.
It is on the agenda for the mental health task force for Wednesday night.
Right.
And we didn't get a chance to speak tonight, but some of the documentation that you provided me would lend itself really well to some of the procedures we'd follow.
Yeah.
And so we do need to just kind of have some discussion around what sits at policy level and what sits at procedure. But there was a
Absolutely.
lot of great guidance that will help us with our procedures for sure.
And I think to your point, we have to balance the policies that are effective and encompassing and also not an additional burden
Right.
Where they don't need to be. And so I think that's why I would like to have more fluid discussion about that. And
I think
based
that'd be
off
great.
this. Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Okay, we're going to move on a vote on this one then. We're
So-
ready to-
So
yeah,
I
go ahead.
think-
What do you?
I think we're
You want
tabling.
to table it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that
then we
would-
need
Sorry,
that.
I didn't want to
That's
put
all
those
right.
words in your mouth,
Yeah, that was-
Dr.
so-
Faulkner.
Because you can vote this down and then bring something back, or we can table it.
Do you have to table just the first reading, though? Do you have to table the first reading?
If you want to bring it back, you do.
You can certainly vote for a first read, and it can look different upon second read. So I think there's
Right.
multiple directions we could take in terms of
Yeah. So
approving a first read, but having a different
I
version.
guess when do you plan on getting together and straightening this?
Wednesday.
Then why don't we just approve it now so it's approved for the second reading?
And you modify it before the second reading, you can
Yeah.
do that. Jennifer, are you there?
That way you're not delaying.
I just want to make, yeah, I mean, I just want to make sure that we're doing it by the book.
Yeah.
It also certainly is something that we'd like to see these improvements, but if they're voted on in October versus November, I think that we're fine.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
if you feel more comfortable at the table, I want,
What's
you know.
your, how would you recommend that we proceed? As a superintendent, would you prefer that we move on the first reading and then modify for a second, or just table it tonight and scrap it and start over?
I think I'm truly comfortable with either of those. So,
As
with
am I. I
Dr.
just want
Faulkner,
guide- yeah.
as an expert in this area, I certainly would defer to,
How would
to
you
your
like to-
idea.
Modified with the second reading.
Yeah.
It's just truly on what the board wants to do right now.
Right. So
Yep.
sounds like a first reading would be fine to move
Right.
forward, and we have
Okay.
time
For-
over this next month, and I'm certainly happy to sit down with you at any
Yeah,
point.
the first reading does not make it policy.
Gotcha.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so we're going to vote then?
Yeah, makes
Okay.
sense.
So we're not tabling.
We're
We're
not
not
tabling
tabling.
anymore.
Alrighty. Okay, so we're voting on the motion. I have Mrs. Heater and Dr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
excuse me, Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Okay, we are at 13.1, 2024, bus drivers. The board will take action upon the recommendation of the superintendent to approve the bus driver list for the 2023-24 school year as presented pending receipt of all required clearances and documentation. Motion to approve.
So motion.
Dr. Green. Got a second. Mr. Clauser. Questions or comments? Terry, go ahead.
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Abstain.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. 13.2, transportation agreement. The board will take action to approve a parent transportation agreement to transport a student to New Story for the 2023-24 school year. Motion to approve. Mr. Vognetz, second.
Second.
Cedar. Questions or comments?
Is this, we only have one student going to New Stories? That's what's going on? Or what?
I think the situation is
very
a bit unique
specific.
with this student.
Situation
Just
with this
this
student.
Yeah,
We still take others up in.
yeah, yeah. Probably not something for further public discussion, but we can certainly talk about it privately. Comments, questions? Okay, Terry?
Mr. Huron,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Mr. Vognetz,
Yes.
Mr. Clauser,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Dr. Faulkner,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Heater,
Yes.
Mr. Brookhart.
Yes. Okay. And we are at 14.1. Board concerns and items for the next meeting agenda. I have a couple things, a couple of them really brief and one that may be a little more, but does anyone else have anything they want to bring up? Chris?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the dynamics and the upcoming dynamics. I think I'd like to see the district conduct a district-wide survey to get a pulse, or at least certainly a benchmark on. And again, let me preface it a little separately. In the mindset of mental health and well-being, I'd like to see us do a district-wide survey of staff and others, not the students, and get a barometer and a measurement or some value out of doing some survey to get a pulse of the district. Conduct a survey to get a sense of where we're at. There's been a significant amount of change. I've had conversations with folks. There's just been a lot of things, and I think it's behooves us to take a hard look and create some kind of metrics by which we can assess where we are and make it data driven, and then do a follow-up what that looks like. I don't know if I explained it as well as I intended.
Are you meaning
I'm
like,
tired.
are you saying like sort of like a school climate? Is that what you're alluding to?
No,
Like
I mean,
with
we talk a lot, and we just did here, we did it in exec session, we talk about mental health and well-being of students. I think we need to take an approach similar in fashion to the district as a whole. And I say that to the staff, the teachers, the administration, all that, and do a benchmark.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a very, very valuable thing to do.
One of the benchmark measures is there are some standardized measures of school climate that get at the faculty, administration, perceptions of, a wide range of things, a lot of different domains. But I think that, we can talk more about that, I think, but I think that's in line with what you're alluding to, which is that how are we doing, and how are teachers feeling about how we're doing, how the administrators feel about how we're doing as far as psychological safety, social and emotional well-being, all the things that we've talked about. I'm happy to help with those discussions, but it makes a lot of sense, right? You're talking about making database.
You said that better than I tried.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, but I totally agree.
Yeah, I think, there's no preconceived notion, but if you just take a deep breath, and again, maybe it came into my view because I'm on the back end of my 4 years. There's been significant change. Even in the last, look around the room.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all, there's been, and I think if we're going to do justice to the best interest of our community and our systems and our school district as a whole, I think it's so valuable to what all we're doing and our focus on our students, but there's another element to that. A lot of other minds, bodies, souls, and families that are also in this mix with us. And
Yeah.
I think it just, what you said has a lot of value. It's what
Couldn't agree more.
How do we start? Where do we start in terms of crafting something like that?
I would certainly like to work with Dr. Faulkner on a standardized measure. What makes me a little nervous about that, not that I don't see the value, is when we talk about survey, there's a science to survey design.
Yep.
And so I want to make sure, and I think we should have some further conversation about exactly what you're interested in measuring so that we're picking a product that will measure that, if you
Sure.
will.
Absolutely.
And we're not just, I think in the past, Danville has sent some surveys out that a particular question could measure a lot of different things. And so then you get feedback and you don't actually know what to do with that response. So if we're taking something like that seriously, and the Mental Health Task Force has made some recommendations on doing that, we hadn't prioritized that as the first step in the process because they have a long list of recommendations, but it's something we could talk about on Wednesday night and moving forward. I think we just have to use a serious product, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not a fan to do stuff just to check boxes. I think
Yeah.
that's just an absolute waste of energy.
Yeah.
I think there's no value to doing that and say, oh, we did this, look, we can show you the data, and it's like, big deal, throw it in the garbage. I just feel, if you just even look at the last 12 months, there's just been significant change. And I'm not suggesting it's bad or good. I'm just saying that we're at a point in time, and we're also embarking on another change in the shape of the school board. And I just think that if we approach it with the spirit and intent that I'm trying to convey, and I'm probably not doing as good a job as maybe I should, I think that has tremendous value, not only near term, but longer term. We have something to assess ourselves, and it's less subjective, and it's data driven. I don't know what it looks like. I haven't participated. That part I don't know, but I think conceptually I just wanted to throw that out there, and I appreciate you sharing kind of a more factual-based view.
And it
of
can be
that
done. It absolutely can be
concept.
done.
Where does the PAYS survey work with that? The Pennsylvania Youth Survey? Is that?
That's driven more towards students.
Yeah.
The PAYS survey,
Okay.
and their experiences, things
Right.
they've
done.
The students is definitely part of it, but
Right.
we
Yeah,
have
for
other
sure.
folks
I would say
in
we
these
could
walls
certainly
every day,
share
too.
those results, but I think we're
So-
looking at a larger product.
Okay. All right, good enough.
Thank you.
Other things from the board that they would like to bring up? There's a couple things I want to make sure don't get lost by the next meeting. Obviously, the policy that you had brought up that we approved the first reading, we want to make sure by the second reading it's reviewed and that we are able to bring back something that's modified as we see fit. There was another thing I thought that was, the Daktronics. We want to make sure we continue to put that on the agenda as a discussion item, and if that goes through the athletic committee again, that's really at the discretion of Ms. Cooper, I believe, if you want to put that on with Mr. Moser and Dr. Need, then it should definitely come back to the board next month. We won't lose that. We have a lot of, I think, legitimate questions about it, but also know that it's something that's looming out there that we're going to need to talk about. I have one thing I wanted to talk about briefly. One or two of you have already had conversations, and I don't want to get into a long oration on this, but one thing that for the last several years I've watched pretty closely, first of all in my prior position and now here, is athletic travel. And I was looking through the Heartland Athletic Association. I think it's a conference hack. And our teams here, and a couple things really jumped out at me. And one of them was that girls softball team is now aligned with Jersey Shore, with Williamsport, with Central Mountain, but not with Bloomsburg, I don't believe Central Columbia, Southern, or any of the more local schools. The girls basketball team, similar. It just seems, when the Heartland started and they first started playing in 2008, it was supposedly being done to create some geographical advantages and reduce travel, and now it's doing anything but that. It seems like it's actually increasing travel significantly. Central Mountain was added recently. Central Mountain's in Lock Haven, if you're not familiar with it. Central Mountain, nothing against the district. I'm sure it's a fabulous district with great people. But it was a jointure of Bald Eagle Nittany, Lock Haven, Sugar Valley, and Renova Bucktail, I believe. It's a large school district. And it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me for us to be going and aligned with a district like that, which is probably 5 or 6A, and it's an hour away. And it's horrible to go there in the winter when we're not ever aligned with some of the more local schools. Williamsport was recently added as well, is I believe almost a full member. Mr. Albertson might be able to direct me. I don't think they're in boys basketball, but I think they're in everything else now. Okay, yeah, and you can make an argument for or against playing much larger schools. Sometimes I just think when it's mandated by a conference and by enrollment driving the divisions that you're in, I think that puts you in some positions with your kids that I don't think are necessarily the best in the best interest of us in travel and disparity in size of school when it's mandated. If you choose it, fine, but not when it's mandated. Midwest was recently added as well, not quite as recent, maybe 5, 6 years back, which is also, if anybody's driven through Shamokin Dam, it may look close on a map, but it isn't when you're driving it. So I would really hope that the Heartland and our representatives would at least consider starting some conversations on making their alignments more geography-driven as opposed to enrollment-driven. I felt that way for years. I don't buy into the idea that the bigger schools need to play the bigger schools. The best football program in the area right now, Danville's fantastic, but it's hard to argue against 13 or 14 state titles, and that's a small school, Southern Columbia. Mount Carmel won a state title in girls basketball. It's a small school. Loyal Sox, fantastic in boys basketball. Enrollment does not necessarily drive competition. And if it needs to start here, but it needs to start because the Heartland has modified the schools that are in, and the travel to me has really gotten out of hand. It leads to kids getting out of school early too often and getting in late too often. And I just think it needs to change. So we'll see where it goes. Just wanted to put it out there if anybody else has any thoughts on it, but it's something I'm going to continue to talk about, and hopefully it'll get someone's attention. If it doesn't, no meeting. Anybody, any comments on it? Anything? Anyone want to dissent? Mr. Moser, you and I have talked about this, obviously.
Yeah, well, we can certainly put together a travel analysis of where we're going, how long it takes us, how much that costs. We can certainly do something like that for the next board meeting.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to present Mr. Reichard with a certificate of appreciation from the PSBA for 8 years of service on our school board.
Hey! Wow.
Wow.
Speech, speech, real short, speech.
Too short, I didn't even know it was happening.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Huh, that's the biggest surprise I've got all night. I'm now in my office. Thank you very much, folks. What's that? No.
Any other board comments,
Yeah.
questions? And then we'll open up the public comment.
Real
Go
quick,
ahead.
Mr. Sokolowski mentioned in the beginning, we got the teachers got a great new contract, the support staff got a great new contract. How about our tax collectors? Can we do a study to see how they're being paid and
I'll look at it. That has to be done at a certain time of the year, which is in the spring, where the tax collector agreements, and I have to see when they expire, because I'll have agreements. So I'll review it, and I'll report back to the board, and we'll go from there.
Actually, I believe they were just approved last year.
22.
Yeah. Was it?
Yeah.
So I'll see when it was approved and how many years. Again, the tax collectors, they do a great amount of service for our district. I appreciate all their work they're doing. And again, Beth Norman in our office spends an awful lot of time, and she's very accurate, and I do appreciate them all. Thank you.
Just for the record, I'm not negotiating that.
Okay. Anything else from the board before we open things up to public comment? Public comment, anyone? Ross?
Mr. Albertson and Mr. Mosley. But yeah. Thank you, board, and everyone for supporting the program. Had 58 girls this summer. I asked our girls after our last game. Young kids learn how to play volleyball, and none of them raised their hand. I said, if we have a clinic in the school, who can help me? What we're building, thanks for supporting it. Bill with a new team. How long we had our club. Last Friday. Playing volleyball feels a little different now. Thank you for everything.
No, thank you. It's awfully difficult to work through 58 students coming out in a gym without an awful lot of space and dealing with all the things you deal with. So we thank all of you, and great.
And honestly, we feel really.
Yeah.
We didn't just start with.
Thank you. Anything else before we adjourn? No more public comment? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Anyone opposed? We're adjourned.